Hey guys, Joe Rips here, coming back with another in-depth Slay the Spire discussion. Today I want to talk about Glass Knife. Glass Knife. Deal 8 damage twice, Glass Knife's damage is lowered by 2 this combat. The first time I saw this card, I think this is true of a lot of, like, constructed... Man, this is a big tangent, which I'll just go on, because why not? I think a lot of people who play constructed deck builders tend toward thinking about a deck in operation. So they think about what a deck looks like once it's up and running. And something that leads them to do is they overrate powers a lot. So something like Envenom, for example, conceptually they think about what a deck's turn looks like once everything's set up, and Envenom does a lot. And it's harder as somebody who is used to constructed deck builders, stuff like Magic the Gathering or even Hearthstone, maybe, I don't know, to think about how much the cost is to set this up. Because that's not a thing that's quite as normal in other constructed deck builders, the idea of, like, setting up a thing that happens. So I think something like Envenom gets overvalued by a lot of people, and when I was starting out in Slay the Spire, I was definitely undervaluing Glass Knife, because I was thinking about the deck and how it scales into combats and stuff, and I was like, oh, so every time I play this, it deals, well, its damage is lowered by 2, that means it deals 4 less the next time I play it. That's going to become a liability at some point. That doesn't sound so great. I was also, at the time, building a lot of silence decks that were sort of based around draw engines and trying to, you know, power out block with backflips, which is something I still do, but instead of adding damage to that mix, I was sort of like able to build so much block that I didn't even really need damage. I was like using 1 Noxious Fumes to kill every enemy or something like that. Excuse me, it was time to sneeze. And that works fine on lower ascensions. And that is how you're meant to make block as silent. So it wasn't really evident to me that I was making a mistake, because I was winning fairly often with it, and I was, you know, the block was pretty clearly a reasonable way to be making block. Do check out my discussion about malaise if you've missed it. I talked a lot about a different way to get mitigation in silent, but the obvious way to get mitigation in silent is just like play backflips and footwork and stuff, and yeah, Glass Knife isn't that good in that deck really. But as I got better at the game and started taking silent out onto higher ascensions and stuff, I started noticing that, like, I just wasn't winning that often at Ascension 15 with silent. I was winning like a third of my runs or something. I really massively sort of changed the angle that I was thinking about silent at. And I went from thinking, like, silent's got this great block package, I want to build that block package to be so strong that basically any damage source in the entire game can win for me. I went from that to thinking silent is really lackluster at damage. And when you have lackluster damage, your block has to do so much for you to survive fights. You also, against enemies who, like, put burns in your deck, you have to just, like, get lucky at the ends of fights when there are a ton of burns in your deck, or you have to make a really big deck to not have those burns overwhelm you as the fight's gone. And at Ascension 15, this was very noticeable. Enemies have a lot of health, and, like, I was just failing to kill them, even though I was pretty good at making block. And so I realized that silent benefits a lot from working out ways to just deal damage, like just deal moderate amounts of damage. And Glass Knife is so good at that. So good at that. And it comes in at the right time in the fight. This is... I think I might take this over every card except maybe After Image on the first floor as silent. Maybe After Image I would take over Glass Knife, but I would feel really bad about it. Like, The second thing that I found out about Glass Knife, I'd worked out, you know, this card doesn't fit my conception of what I want in the game because it's not a great card as my deck gets up and running, and it doesn't deal enough damage to get me over the hump or whatever. The second thing I worked out about Glass Knife is, like, you can use it to get over a hump. You can put it in your deck and it can be used to kill Act 1 elites, and that's really nice because the Silent struggle is to kill Act 1 elites otherwise. And being able to kill Act 1 elites is very valuable because you can pick up relics, and some of the relics are super strong, and that can get you through Act 2. So I was like, okay, so Glass Knife is a decent early game card that you can pick up to beat Act 1 elites, and then, you know, you don't care about it as much later in the game. It's just one card in your deck. A little bit like my Rampage discussion earlier. It's got a purpose, and then it stops being all that good. But then, when I started actually picking Glass Knife, you know, quite highly in Act 1, so I was playing with it more often than I had before, I started to realize that the card is just insane. Always. For the entire... It deals fucking 24 damage for 1 energy. Like, what is wrong with me? is what I eventually discovered. And yeah, this is like one of my top 10 silent cards for sure. I think this is my highest valued silent attack. Cloak and Dagger Plus is up there with it, but it's not really an attack. But yeah, Glass Knife Plus is insane. This is a very, very, very strong card, which I am happy to add to basically any silent deck at basically any time. If I get offered a Glass Knife and it isn't upgraded, unless there's something very, very, very strong being offered alongside it, I'm planning to take Glass Knife, and I'm probably planning to upgrade it, because this upgrade is an extra 8 damage. In terms of damage upgrades, that's incredible. You can get 9 damage out of a Skewer upgrade if you get 3 energy into it, but in general, your damage upgrades in this game are like, this is 4 damage. That's a little bit more of a typical damage upgrade. Sucker Punch is 2 damage. Gets you another weak. Quick Slash is 4 damage. So 8 damage on an upgrade for a card is very, very strong. It's a very valuable upgrade. And yeah, I worked out that Glass Knife is insane. And I consider, you know, the moment that I worked out that a card like Glass Knife is insane to be the moment where I started playing Silent in a way that approximated anything sensible. My Silent decks have gone from, you know, being attempts to play a 10-card, 1-turn kill deck, which is a lot of fun on Non-Ascension, and was a lot of fun. It's not very good, but it was a lot of fun, to attempts to play, like, 20-card grand finale packages, or Noxious Fumes plus backflips, or something like that, to eventually just embracing, like, what the hell. And now I'm playing like 35-card decks which have cards like Glass Knife in them, and they're way better. You get to put more powers into your deck because, like, you can fit 7 powers into a 35-card deck and still just draw 1 on average every turn. So by the time you hit like turn 5 or 6 in a boss fight, you have 7 powers in play instead of 2 or 3, which is really nice. And you get to have cards like Glass Knife. And, you know, I'll only draw this card twice in a combat, which means it deals 44 damage for 2 energy, which is nuts. And I never have to worry about it, like, running out of damage and being a problem late in a fight, because they're all dead. You know, if the only damage source that you were ever playing was Glass Knife Plus, what, you're still dealing... I shouldn't have tried to do this math on camera, but you're still dealing 72... you're still dealing 84 damage with just that card before it runs out of damage. You know how much damage 84 damage is? That's like a fifth of the Act 3 end boss health pool on that one card. So... yeah, Glass Knife is great. There isn't really any card in Silent that I'd point to be like, this is a card that interacts well with Glass Knife. That's not really what it's about. This is just an incredibly, incredibly valuable attack. Just stand alone. The enemy has a health pool. You have to make it 0 to kill them. and playing a Glass Knife is really valuable for that. This is not a card that is going to go in any like archetype guide that you're reading or any like synergistic builds or something like that. This isn't a card that you put in a damage package even. There are damage packages in Silent. You know, you have the Noxious Fumes damage package. You have Envenom plus Blade Dance. You play lots of shivs and they get poison or whatever. There's none of that going on. This is fucking killing them. We don't have to talk about fancy stuff like damage packages. 24 damage, 1 energy, Glass Knife. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this chat about Glass Knife. Fireside with Joe and Ribs. I'll be back tomorrow talking about another card or relic. Please leave me a comment letting me know what you think about Glass Knife. I would love to hear. And I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.